The Vagabond Girl of Nothingtown by Kino Ren. Chapter 1. One Summer Day.
July 23rd. Just another day in my extremely disinteresting life. I had just finished the day of food delivery on my bicycle and sat at home in my small one-room apartment on the first floor of a street we will simply call here Nowhere Street. I want to say the time was around 7 p.m., but during days like these, time was hardly a thing I kept track of. In any case, I do remember it being a Friday. As with all Fridays, I needed to take out my trash. I should start cooking again, I thought, as I carried the trash bag filled with mostly empty ramen containers out of my apartment. The thought was an empty one, like many empty thoughts one has during low times in their life. I need to work out more. I need to rekindle with an old friend. I need to cook for myself again. Such thoughts are constantly filling our brains, making us think we are trying to improve our current situation. Without a proper reason and motivation behind doing such things beyond the simple, "That's what everyone else says is good for you," or "That's what everyone else is doing, though," such thoughts are hardly ever acted upon for more than a week at a time. Intrusive thoughts aside, I made my way to the dumpster that day, a large black rectangular dumpster bin commonly found in every one of the 50 states in America. What show should I watch today? I thought before opening the dumpster. Wait, no. I should be coming up with a story idea. But maybe a show will give me the inspiration I need? No, that's not how it works. You need discipline. As the inner parts of my mind bickered at each other when I approached the dumpster, however, it was at that moment that something not so ordinary in the most ordinary of towns, on the most ordinary of days, at the most ordinary of dumpsters took place. Clank. A loud clashing noise suddenly came from inside the dumpster, startling me. A raccoon? I thought. Surely there had to be some small animal inside the dumpster to produce such a noise. I couldn't back down now, though. My apartment was far too small to contain too many trash bags full of empty ramen cups. Gathering up my courage, I approached the dumpster bin door. Maybe it's a portal to another world, I chuckled, calming myself a bit. I had been watching too many isekai shows again. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Too bad real life did not hold such wonderful events. I gulped, preparing myself to potentially be attacked by whatever was inside. Before I could reach my hand to open up the lid, however, as if a portal really was about to open into my world, the lid suddenly popped open on its own. Ah! I fell over onto the ground. What sort of creature? My thoughts were once again interrupted as I looked back up at the dumpster. A girl? Standing in front of me with her feet fully inside the contents of the dumpster, there in plain view, stood a girl with long dark hair looking at me with dark eyes and a blank expression. We just stayed there motionless for a brief moment. Hello? I managed to blurt out. The girl looked to be a couple years younger than me, though with the copious amounts of dirt on her face, I couldn't really tell her exact age. Her body proportions seemed to suggest her being at least an adult, however.
Do you have food?
What?
Food. I'm hungry.
Huh? The girl jumped out of the dumpster in an acrobatic way, landing on her bare feet in front of me. When she did, I saw that dirt not only covered her face but her body as well. She wore an old pair of blue jeans that looked to have parts torn off. In some other situation, I would have thought she was making a fashion statement. On top, she wore a plain black t-shirt, about 2 sizes too large for her. Even that color, though, could not hide the various trash stains that showed on her shirt.
Do you have food?
The girl repeated again, walking closer to me, her large black eyes seemingly staring straight into my soul. It took my mind a minute to process everything before I could respond. Food? Forget that. What the hell were you doing just now in that dumpster?
Looking for food.
She said, deadpan, still staring at me. I see. We continued to stare blankly at each other for a couple seconds. What the hell, is she a tramp? Maybe a scammer? Why would she be in a dumpster then, though?
If you don't have food, I'm leaving.
The girl finally said, beginning to walk away. Good riddance, I don't have time for this anyways, I still need to… As she began to leave my sight, however, a strange feeling suddenly hit me. Wait! I shouted at her. Perhaps it was pity seeing a young woman having to dumpster dive for food. Perhaps a part of me longed for a new friend being in short supply of them for a while now. Or perhaps I was just horny, and the prospect of a young woman entering my apartment excited me, even if dirt covered her entire body. One's actions are often dictated by multiple motives after all that one never truly understands. Perhaps I even thought on that fateful summer evening There was a story to be found. Wait, I repeated to ensure she heard me. The girl stopped and turned around, still looking at me blankly. I have food I can give you.
Really?
Yes, really, but you have to promise me one thing, okay?
Okay.
Promise me. Promise me you'll take a shower when we go inside. I opened my pantry door to grab 2 ramen cups. Need to restock, I thought, seeing only a few containers remaining. Wait, no. I'm supposed to start cooking real food again. The girl from the dumpster currently occupied my bathroom preparing to take a shower where I could hear the sound of running water. What to do? I began boiling water in my kettle. The police? Too dramatic, and I don't like those guys anyways. A shelter maybe then? In any case, this problem was too large for an ordinary man like me to handle. No reason to think of a solution on an empty stomach, though. The sounds of the boiling water from the kettle combined with the running water from my bathroom put my mind at ease for some reason. It reminded me of being at a beach. Maybe I should go to one later this week to draw inspiration, I thought, knowing full well I wasn't prepared to make the 4-hour bike ride to the nearest beach anytime soon. Still, the thought of running my feet through the beach waves entered my mind. That would be so nice. So nice I can almost feel it. Indeed, the water currently flowing between my toes really did remind me of being at a beach. Would the water be this warm, though? It's as if… Wait a minute. My daydream broke when a sudden realization dawned on me. What the… Unfortunately, unlike many popular stories nowadays, I did not magically teleport to a beach in that moment. The water that flowed through my toes was not from the waves of any ocean flowing onto the beach sand, but instead from the shower head of my bathroom flowing into my kitchen. What the hell is that girl doing? I went up to my bathroom door, giving it a knock. Everything all right? I shouted. No response. Make sure the drain is unplugged or else… Before I could finish my sentence, however, the door suddenly burst open. I had been leaning slightly against it, and the sudden opening caused me to slip and fall onto the ground. Ow, I said, rubbing my back. What are you…
Help me.
There in front of me, with nothing covering a single part of her body, stood the girl from the dumpster. Ah! I shrieked, covering my eyes. Put something on before opening!
I need help.
Yes, clearly. And I'm doing my best, but…
The shower's not working.
Huh? I uncovered my eyes. But to my chagrin, the girl still stood there with a deadpan expression, naked as a newborn. Ah! I screamed, covering up my eyes again.
The shower's not…
Okay, yes, I get it, just… I uncovered my eyes to stare at the ground, trying my best to avert looking at the girl's body. Scrambling the best I could, I managed to grab the towel on the toilet seat in the bathroom, handing it to the girl. Here, I said, covering my eyes now with one arm. Now cover up and I'll see what the problem is. To my relief, she took the towel from my hand as I looked over at the shower handle and drain plug. Figures, I thought. I've been lucky so far, but an apartment this cheap was bound to have something break eventually. As I unplugged the drain and tested the handles, however, it appeared they had been in the same condition they had always been in. These work, I began. You just have to… I nearly fell over when I turned around to face the girl again. For some reason, cover-up only half registered in the girl's mind, as the towel I had given her was tied around her waist, covering only her lower half, but leaving her top half completely bare still. Cover up your top half too! I screeched, covering my eyes again.
But I haven't taken a bath yet.
Yes, but… Seeing that the conversation was going nowhere, I improvised instead, and simply turned off the shower and plugged the drain. Quickly, I scrambled out the door, closing it behind me. Okay, the bath is ready. Just clean yourself, and I'll undrain the bathtub after, okay? I yelled into the bathroom.
Okay.
And to this day, that soft okay is still the least assuring okay I had ever heard. I sat there at the lone square table in my apartment that I had picked up from Walmart when I first moved to Nothingtown. I had bought 2 metal chairs as well to go along with the table, one of which I used daily to eat my ramen after work. On this rarest of rare occasions, however, occupancy occurred on the other chair by a long, dark-haired woman. Would you like a fork? I asked, watching the girl struggle to eat her noodles with the chopsticks I'd provided.
Yes, please.
She said with a sad expression, as the noodle she attempted to pick up with a singular chopstick slid back into the cup before reaching her mouth. I chuckled, going to my kitchen. Perhaps too optimistic, I thought, grabbing a fork to replace the chopsticks for the girl. It would appear, however, that offering a fork as a utensil was equally optimistic.
Ow.
The girl said, stabbing herself in a feeble effort to eat the slippery ramen noodles. I couldn't help but laugh a little at this. It was like watching a toddler fruitlessly attempt to fit a square block into a circular hole. Like this, I said, grabbing her fork to demonstrate. Slowly, I twisted the fork between the noodles of the ramen cup to pick it up. The girl nodded, then opened her mouth. Seeing her anticipation, however, I gently placed the fork with the noodles into her mouth. In all honesty, I thought myself too young to be a parent, but there I was, feeding a toddler all the same. Tasty? I asked as she chewed on the noodles.
Tasty.
Good, I said, handing the fork back to her. Just imitate the motion I did and twist the fork between the noodles. She nodded, attempting my instructions. Slowly, she managed to tangle a single noodle onto her fork before popping it into her mouth. This must be what it feels like to see your kid receive a passing grade, I thought, as I began chomping on my own noodles. The next few minutes passed silently as I ate my noodles and observed the girl put in her full concentration in the battle of fork dexterity. Strangely amusing. A full 10 minutes passed as I drank the last of my soup before I broke the silence again. Hits the spot, doesn't it? The girl, however, did not respond as she remained fully occupied in her attempts to wrangle the noodles. So, I began, where are you from? The girl looked up at me when I asked the question. Having now been cleansed of the dirt on her face, she appeared quite pretty. Her pale skin contrasted brilliantly with her dark hair. Her dark black eyes looked once again as if they were staring straight into my soul.
Narnia.
Right, and I'm from Middle-earth, I replied, chuckling at the absurdity of her answer. The girl, however, simply continued to stare at me blankly before attempting once again to consume her ramen. So, I said again, trying to change the topic. It seemed clear that for whatever reason, the girl had no interest in sharing where she was actually from. Perhaps she was embarrassed about being homeless, though her previous actions made me think social embarrassment was the last thing she cared about. What's your name? I asked, finding it a bit odd that a total stranger had entered my home and ate my ramen whose name I didn't even know at that point. The girl looked up at me again with the same blank expression.
Dandelion.
Dandelion, I repeated. Is that your real name? She nodded.
Like the flower.
Although technically the truth, I didn't exactly associate dandelions with flowers at the time. Roses, lilacs, sunflowers, 20 different flower species entered my mind first when thinking of the word flower, before thinking of dandelions if I were to ever associate dandelions with flowers at all. In truth, the only thing I thought of when I heard the word dandelion was the word weed. The type of plant that, unlike flowers, were not only unpleasant to look at, but also a great nuisance to whatever grassy lawn it lived in the area of. Still, I didn't want to interject my own viewpoint onto this girl who clearly had a different opinion of dandelions. It's a nice name, I lied. My name's Kane. Nice to meet you.
Kane. Hello, Kane.
Yes, hello to you as well, dandelion.
Kane. I'm hungry. Help me.
I looked to notice her cup was almost completely full still. Nonchalantly, she handed me her fork and proceeded to open her mouth wide. About 20 minutes passed, as slowly but surely, I managed to feed the girl the rest of the ramen. At this point, it had already been quite late, and I was wondering if this girl was ever going to leave my small apartment. After finishing her noodles, however, the girl instead went straight for the bookshelf in my bedroom. Hey, wash your hands before touching that, I said, grabbing Dandelion and directing her to the kitchen sink. There really was not much furniture at all in my apartment outside of the bed and the dining table. The only thing other than those two items was, as mentioned previously, the bookshelf where I kept all my precious books. In all honesty, that very bookshelf had been collecting dust for a while now. After all, in the age of smartphones and laptops where instant entertainment could be had in a moment, rarely did I ever find myself in the mood to pick up a book nowadays. Quite ironic given my profession, but the truth nonetheless. Still, when I was a much younger man, books had been a large part of my life, and I kept many of the relics from that time period. The book that Dandelion grabbed after I forcibly made her wash her hands happened to be one of my favorites. Oh, that's a good one, I said, seeing the cover of the book. The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. She flipped to the first page of the book, and then suddenly dropped the book, a scared expression appearing on her face. Hey, careful with that, I said, picking the book back up from the ground.
Scary.
How? I asked, wondering both how anyone could find The Little Prince to be a scary book, and even more so how Dandelion could possibly have been scared after only seeing one page.
There's an elephant inside a snake.
I laughed. If you haven't actually read the book yourself, I highly recommend doing so. But for the sake of this story, I will briefly explain that one of the most iconic images in the entire book comes on the very first page, where the main character of the story draws a picture of what appears to be the shadow of a hat. Of course, it is revealed that instead of a hat, the image is actually of, as the girl said, an elephant inside of a snake. Apparently, this could only be seen by people who did not have their imaginations dulled by the gritty nature of adulthood. "You've read this before, haven't you?" I asked. The girl, however, simply shook her head.
I don't know how.
"You don't know how?"
I don't know how to read.
Now keep in mind that after having quite a view of the girl's body earlier, it seemed clear that she could not have been any younger than 20. Now I don't know about you, but in my entire life of knowing people at least 20 years of age, I have never known one who at that age did not know literacy of at least one language. Like many things the girl had said that evening, I thought at first perhaps she was making a joke. As I looked at her, however, and she stared back at me, it seemed that her statement was genuine. Is that so?" I asked, trying to come up with words. In all honesty, I wanted to yell at whoever this girl's parents or legal guardians were, though I had begun to entertain the thought that perhaps she was an alien.
Can you read the story to me?
She asked, handing me the book and staring at me with the same blank expression she had worn all evening. It was as if every time she did, her large googly eyes casted a spell on me, causing me to do whatever the girl requested. Hesitantly, I nodded as she sat down onto the ground, still staring at me in anticipation. "Once when I was 6 years old," I began, sitting down next to her. Perhaps raising a toddler really wasn't as hard as it seemed. "Send me word that he has come back," I finished. 2 hours had passed since I began the rereading of one of my favorite childhood books, and the whole time Dandelion had been listening to me attentively and occasionally asking questions throughout the story. Of course, not being the author of the story itself, but seeing that Dandelion wasn't going to be satisfied with a simple "I don't know," I made up a number of different answers and interpretations to her questions. As I closed the cover of the book, however, Dandelion did have a satisfied expression on her face, signifying that she both understood and enjoyed the 2 hours of reading thoroughly. That was, until she opened her mouth to speak again.
I don't get it.
She said, "Well, yes, it's a pretty complex story about the nature of adults losing innocence in artistic pursuit. I wouldn't expect you to get it all right." She shook her head before I could finish.
Not that, the rose.
"Yes, what about her? She has 4 thorns.
Why didn't the prince take her with him when he visited the other planets? Even at the end, he could have taken the rose with him to visit the pilot."
If at this point you have not paused this story to read The Little Prince, again, I highly recommend doing so, as it is, in my opinion, one of the greatest stories ever written. Dandelion, of course, is referring to the flower at the beginning of the story that lived on the small star the little prince had been from, who he abandoned very early in the story in favor of traversing the universe. I had at this point read The Little Prince at least 20 times, and not once had such a question popped into my head. Roses are quite fragile, as the story stated. I began trying to scramble for another answer. It was a fine question, logically speaking, though it did go against every thematic element of the story. Still, themes and motifs were phrases I only ever encountered at my university-level English classes, that I was sure a girl that did not even know how to read would never hope to understand.
Well, then roses are dumb. He should have cared for a dandelion instead. They can go anywhere in the world.
A puzzled expression showed on my face, not only from the seemingly shameless self-promotion of her own name, but also that Dandelion's statement was not accurate at all, as it was not the dandelions themselves that spread across the world, but their seeds. Like all other flowers, a dandelion would die from lack of hydration and sunlight if it ever left the spot it had been born on. Still, seeing that it was quite late, and I did not want to add flower anatomy to the list of things I needed to explain, I simply nodded my head. "That's true." She nodded as well, with a satisfied expression on her face at my agreement. Really, for a homeless girl, she honestly was shameless. In any case, it was already 11 p.m., and it became clear to me, with Dandelion going to grab another book, that my residence would be her likely destination for the night. "It's too late for another story," I said, grabbing some blankets I had kept in my closet for the winter months and handing them to the girl. "If you would like, you can sleep on my apartment floor for the night. I'm going to take a shower." It was much too late to take her to a shelter at that time of night. Like most experienced procrastinators, I decided to delay the problem of what to do with Dandelion until tomorrow. I hurriedly escaped into the bathroom before Dandelion had another chance to affect my soul with her gaze, forcing me to read her another book. What a day, I thought, beginning to shower. Faintly, I could still smell some of the rubbish from the dumpster Dandelion had been in. Geez, what was life even like for you growing up? As I thought more about Dandelion, I felt a bit of sadness swell up inside of me. She must have had a rough life to be in her current situation, being illiterate and having to dig around dumpsters for food. It definitely tugged on my heartstrings thinking about it. Still, I had too much on my own plate to worry about a stranger. Only a week remained for me to think of a book idea, or my dreams of continuing to be a published author would go down the drain. Maybe I should sell out and write smut. That usually sells well. I thought, I'm not that desperate yet, am I? 15 minutes passed as I fruitlessly ran in my mind various possible story ideas, none of which I felt any inspiration to actually turn into a full story. Sighing, I dried myself with my towel, putting on my boxers in preparation to sleep. Wait, I can't come out with just these on with Dandelion in the room, I thought, putting on the shirt and shorts I had just worn for the day. As I left the bathroom, however, it appeared my worries had been for nothing, as Dandelion had not even been conscious. Instead, she lay there sleeping, on my one and only bed. Whatever, I thought, being much too tired for a confrontation. Yawning, I grabbed the blankets that Dandelion had dropped and put them over myself as I laid down on my own carpeted floor. I'll deal with it tomorrow,